I just remembered we hadn't even introduced who you are and what you're doing. So let me just do that first. Divine GPMS, Divine Global People's Monetary System. Now, what caught my attention as well on one of your videos was vote for an equal share of Earth's infrastructure and resources. Now, to some people, they might think, so for example, spiritual people, I can just see them getting riled up saying, but the earth is, nobody owns the earth, etc., etc. And obviously, it's not about that. It's the fact that, we should all be able to benefit and cohabitate with the earth and with people, and it not be controlled and put in the hands of the few. And also, I love this. Governments, politicians, and past oligarchs cannot prevent this, for they represent less than 1% of the global population. They can assist, share, and join, or be separated by their own choice, but will not hold any administrative positions. That I love. That I really love, because we give them so much power. Another argument I've had so many times: we're controlled, the cabal, the government, they're monitoring us, we're programmed, etc., etc. And I'm like, there's such a small minority. We're paying them to do this. We buy their products. We believe their lies. We vote for them. And they're like, no, but in education, they've programmed us and blah, blah, blah. It's like they're repeating verbally the cage that they say these people are witnessing. So that's why I love that bit as well. But obviously, this concept is difficult to grasp. Imagine somebody who's never been in our world, never investigated anything, is very mathematical square. How could this possibly work?
Okay, so we actually have three phases of the plan actually written in the website. So people can read the Divine Plan. It is very, very simple. It's too simple for a lot of people because they think, well, how can it be that easy? It's not going to work, and people won't do this and they won't do that. But again, it's all limited belief. So starting from square one for anyone that hasn't actually, or from ground zero where no one's actually seen the website and they want to understand what it is that we're talking about here. Okay, so what we've created is a platform which is by the people for the people. Okay, and it's essentially a voting platform, but it's also a pledge, which people are giving their agreement, they're logging their agreement, and it's logged by country as well as worldwide total, like a referendum. And it's shown there visibly for all to see. And so we have a plan which basically, what I would love people to do is really go back and remember, who they were when they were that child, where basically money meant absolutely nothing to you. Okay, you would do things, and obviously children would be encouraged to do that, which is good for other people, and be a good child and all that sort of stuff. And obviously growing up in a world where money wasn't a thing, they would contribute and do good things and good acts for people for free. In fact, we still do it all the time. People look after their grandparents and old elderly people. They take care of them often without being paid for it. So really, for what we're talking about here, we need people to go back and remember actually what kind of world would we truly choose to live in, right? If we could wave a magic wand and it could just be that, right? And it would be a world where nobody suffers, nobody is stressed, where, you don't have to pay for anything, that you basically would contribute in society, but you wouldn't be spending 60 or 70 hours a week doing it. You wouldn't be doing various different jobs. You wouldn't be traveling and putting yourself in a very uncomfortable situation, and you would be mutually respected by everyone around you, right? Because you would be seen as a value. Everybody's value would be recognized as being equal to everyone else, and it would be regarded as the most valuable thing on the planet Earth. And that is really the truth of an essence of what we're creating with this platform. We're activating the intrinsic value of every single man, woman, and child upon the Earth. Because without us being here to place value on anything outside of ourselves, there is no value in it, because we're not here to give it that value, right? So people are making a pledge, they're making an agreement that we are all infinite in value, that there is no authority above us, that we are the highest authority below, obviously, the prime creator of everything, whatever one might want to believe that to be or exist or not exist. But we are basically equal. We have to operate in that space, because otherwise you're going to keep on looping with the problems. The disparity, the ego, all of these things will keep on causing the problems, the harms. We need to create a new environment that gives birth to children in a very de-stressed way, like a perfect way if possible, so that we can just build a beautiful kingdom ultimately. So we're building a beautiful kingdom. So we do it by agreement. And the way to explain how this is possible is that all of the infrastructure, all of the resources upon the earth have basically been acquired and put there, the infrastructure specifically, by our sweat equity, or our ancestors have built it. And so nobody in this current time actually owns stuff. That is an illusion. If you own stuff, you don't pay for stuff. So the house that you own, you pay taxes on. The car you own, you pay taxes on. The government can take these things from you if you don't pay your taxes. So you don't own it. It would be theft otherwise, right? And so what we're doing is we're basically saying, well, we're all equal shareholders of everything, okay? And that means that we won't pay for anything. So by a majority vote, because everyone knows how voting works, it's being logged on our website. When we get to 4 billion people worldwide, we will be able to create universal abundance because there'll be no funding at all. There'll be no need for funding. The focus is de-stressing the population, which means that everyone will work a lot less, essentially 1 week in 4, 40 hours a month, not a week, 40 hours a month. Because you'll have billions of people contributing because they won't be doing jobs in the finance sector, military won't be needed, police won't be needed, because those things are there for keeping the current system working and to keep people employed. So it means that for what's essential, there'll be a lot more human resources to assist with those things. And of course, all of the technology is also rolled out and implemented, which reduces the work burden further. So this basically de-stresses people instantly, increases the health of the population amazingly. And of course, the freedoms are also what people are making a pledge for in a decree there, to give us the freedom to love, express, travel, do all of the things that are our birthright to be able to do. Give people that freedom with the pledge that, of course, with this, we've got to take self-responsibility. We've got to self-govern, ultimately, right? Because we're equal in authority. If you start having people bossing you out, if people are given this universal abundance, we want to maintain that abundance. So how do we do that? We maintain it through respect, through love, through kindness, through compassion, which is a lot easier to do when people aren't stressed and they're doing 40, 50, 60 hours a week trying to make money and all that sort of stuff. So it is a very difficult thing for people to imagine. But this is why I want people to go back to when they're a child, because that's where our imagination was greatest. And everything is born and birthed from the imagination, every invention. So just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean it won't happen.
Well, one thing I'd like people to think about, maybe if they're having difficulty grasping this concept, is we think, a lot of people think it's impossible, but we need far less than we have, than we consume, than we buy. The only reason we think it's impossible and we need so much money is because we're consuming stuff that we don't need. And as you said, cooperation, communities that cooperate, call it what you want, bartering, whatever, you can manage in a different way. And in terms of the power and like how is this possible and how can we take back the power? Well, how have the governments got power? Because we're giving it to them. We're saying we're going to let you run stuff because it's easier. We don't want to get involved. As long as we survive, right now it's not much more than minimum for a lot of people. You just do the admin. And that's part of the problem. So we need to take responsibility for how our lives are being run.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, though, we're consenting to their governance, which obviously is causing extreme levels of harm. And they can't do what actually we would want them to do. And like I say, if we could wave a magic wand, we would have a free world. You'd have no hunger. World hunger wouldn't exist. Everyone would be happy and not stressed and not having to work as a slave. Who wants to work as a slave? Of course people don't work as a slave. It's ridiculous that we even have to basically try and appear to be selling this vision, right? We're not selling it. You just don't believe it's possible. Well, that's just down to the fact that we've never had it before and we've been conditioned and programmed to believe we can't have it. Why have we been conditioned and programmed to believe that we can't have it? Well, we couldn't have this and we couldn't do what we're doing with this platform and this movement and the other movements out there before this time, because we didn't have the internet 25, 30 years ago. We didn't have the connectivity of people all over the world to agree to this, right? The plan might have been in the hearts of people still, but you need to have a mechanism to bring people together to break the illusion that we consent to the systems that cause harm, right? And so that's where, when people go to a website, they can give their agreement. It's essentially a vote. It's a consent for us to self-govern, for us to basically, at a majority vote, become equal shareholders, uplift all of humanity, focus purely on the people and the earth, work a lot less. And then the solutions, yes, in terms of, yeah, we can live with a lot less. Of course we can. But what we really are describing, or what we are painting to really broaden the imagination even more, which is, again, some people struggle with this, right? Especially if they don't believe in, or they don't like even the word heaven. But ultimately, we're going to be able to create that utopia because there's no limitation to funding. So if you look at the deserts, for example, the shortage of water, the alleged shortage of drinkable water, when you've got no limitation to funding, you can turn the seawater into drinkable water. There's no worry about cost. It can be done now. It's just it's not profitable to do it. And of course, they want everyone to feel like there's a shortage of things. It allows them to control us, basically. So with that, obviously, unlimited water supply, you've also got the ability to then also grow and harvest deserts again. So we've got, ultimately the ability to end world hunger and to just heal the planet rapidly. And this is one of the major points as well that we're as focused on as well as humanity, because it's completely connected, is our home, this environment. We need to basically look after the planet. We know that obviously there's lots of things going on which obviously shouldn't be going on, and we can put a stop to it, but we can't put a stop to it until the people come together and break the illusion of consent. So again, that's where we've got to document it, and we're doing it visibly through the website, but also as we grow this and as people join us and they participate in sharing and helping people discover this, even if they're not ready to believe it yet, but they're hearing about it more and more, then they start to believe it, they start to open up to it, and then they'll more and more give their agreement more quickly. And so then everything happens.
One thing I'd like to point out to people as well is whether you think it's the Matrix or the Cabal, it doesn't matter what you think. They monitor social media. They monitor activity online. Just the mere fact that so many people would sign up for something like this is a notification to them that many people want a change. And I've had this discussion many times. And for example, they've tried many times to plant the seed that something was going to happen. And you see it that they put it out on social media. It's like a little feeler. And then depending on the feedback from the people in the comments, because for example, as we know, the 2020, whatever, people immediately were terrified. They were so scared, they jumped right in. So what happened? We got the lockdowns, etc. And they've tried that several times since then. But based on the feedback from the comments, which is monitored, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you want, they saw that people weren't going to buy into it again. There's power in that, which is why I liked what you're doing, because we're putting a digital footprint that people are saying, no, this is what we want. Without drama, without fighting, without having to feed that negative energy. Now, in terms of the money, something that might help people a bit not think it's so crazy. Think, what are the governments trying to do? They're trying to implement digital currency. Think about cryptocurrency, blockchain. What's all that about? That's also generated. I see a lot of influencers that are making insane amounts of money with meme coins. I can't get my head around that. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not that you have to have the physical bundles of cash. There's so many options nowadays to do things that it is possible.
Definitely. The thing is what we're actually revealing with this, and the more people think about it and open themselves up to it, yes, during that journey of opening up to it, like even when people see it and they think, oh, beautiful idea, I'll give my agreement straight away, I want it, right? They'll have, if they think about it over and over again at various different points, it's nature, it's natural, they're going to be coming up with thoughts which will come into them and they think, well, that's not going to work, that can't work. Because again, our nature is to try and find reasons why we can't make something happen rather than why we can. That's why there's not that many inventors out there in comparison to the rest of the population, right? It's just a different mindset, and it's a limited mindset, and we have the ability to basically overcome all of these things. Okay, it is just about mindset. And so this is what, again, part of the matrix is a physical material matrix in which we're living in the system and the illusion of powers and freedoms and all that sort of stuff. And oppression, obviously, which is real. But then there's also the matrix of the mind, right? And that is a very real thing as well. I'll just very, very briefly just touch on, I mean, I've got I've had a very interesting journey myself in terms of my whole journey, generally speaking. But one of the reasons why, I mean, just to give you one of many, many examples, you may notice my name's Denovan, or it's Den Truman. So anyone that's watched the Truman Show, right, will understand, if you've watched it recently and you've watched it again in recent years, maybe you didn't pick up on it the first time. We live in the Truman Show literally right now. It is another example of like the Matrix being it's more of a documentary than actually a movie. And really what we need to do is basically break free, but we actually break free together, right? We do it on our own. And with this, we're basically taking our own action to give our own agreement, but we're also, doing it for the collective, and we're doing it selflessly. And we're removing the ego in the process, because the situation with the powers that be, they're attached and they're addicted to their money and to a status, being higher in authority, being above everyone else, having more than everyone else. It is part of the addiction. It's part of, it's because they're lacking in their fulfillment. They're chasing that, and they're lacking in love and real fulfillment. Trauma and all that other stuff comes into play. But obviously this is where people are going to be able to be healed, even the billionaires, even the people that you could say are evil people. I mean, there will be a rehabilitation process that takes place with this. Some people would say, what's going to happen to all of these evil people that have been doing what they've been doing? Surely they need to be killed or, locked up or whatever, but, and ultimately the people, once we get there and we have the power back, we choose obviously what happens. But realistically, we've got to understand that everyone's born into the environment that causes people to be created that way. Like, it's very rare for people to literally be born a psychopath.
But for example, that's one of the issues I also had, that attitude. We're supposedly going to make the change because we're better, and then immediately we're starting to do the same things as the old system, judging, punishing, etc., etc. How do you know? As you said, take a lot of the celebrities that have been caught up in recent scandals. They were forced into that world from very young. So whatever they may be doing now, there's a reason for that. Now, obviously, if somebody's a serial killer, you're not going to say, "Oh, never mind, you go out into the world." So, but we do have to be very careful with that, because I've also had so many discussions with people say we need to get rid of all the governments, all the structures, start again. The very same hierarchies will come up, because there are so many people who want to punish, who want to lead, who want to dominate, which is why I like the vision that you guys have.
Yeah, well, there's a mass healing that will take place and is already taking place for a lot of people. A lot of people have like this, the dark night of the soul, as it's described, as they have their awakening process. And some people, they actually really lose their marbles with that, right? And they don't necessarily come through the other side. Others obviously, gratefully, most people who go through that experience actually then obviously start to heal. They go through a healing process because they start to learn about the spiritual nature of themselves and everything, and they find ways to be able to start managing their emotions and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, just like, we have limited thinking, and that's what people have to keep on remembering, is that we're creating something that hasn't been done before, and that miracles are happening, right? Whether people want to call them that or not, they happen. And one of the things is that love is the most powerful healer there is. And so with love, you have to basically forgive, people for what they've done, and understanding that, like I say, people aren't born psychopaths. Like, if there is any evidence, which I don't think there is, that there are some, even if it's very few, that are apparently born psychopaths, think about this. There are so many mothers that have experienced levels of trauma whilst they're carrying their child. That child is experiencing trauma even before it's born. And so if a child is born a psychopath, it's probably because of that. And still, the environment is what's inflicted that upon that child before it even came into being properly. So there'll be ways to be able to rehabilitate. And until we actually try these different ways and modalities that will be coming to the fore, which will be fully funded or not even funded because we won't even need money at this point. This is what we're talking about with, we've got it in our plan to transition humanity from a world where we've obviously used money and exchanged money for energy and our time to do work or contribute or whatever, to a world where ultimately we won't need money. We've got it in the plan that people will receive money, because a lot of people still think that they can't imagine, that, who's going to do the work if they're not being paid? Hang on, if you're not paying for your travel, your food, your energy, your accommodation, you can share, beautiful stately homes and wherever you want to travel and all that sort of stuff. What do you actually need money for at the end of the day? People are producing goods already. There'll still be the manufacturers of clothing and that sort of stuff. There will be obviously changes, no doubt, in how people perceive what we want and what we need and what's really important. We know that, but that's a transitional phase, and we understand that transition happens constantly all the time. So again, we keep it real, and we basically are keeping it neutral. We're not telling people how it's going to be. We haven't even got there yet. We don't get there yet until we get a majority vote. First, we have to choose it. What do we want? Do we want the heaven on earth? Even if you think it's impossible, what have you got to lose? Nothing. What have you got to gain? Heaven on earth. So give your agreement, right? Okay. Tell people about it. This is the first phase of our 3-phase plan. Get to the majority worldwide, because nothing happens unless we do. Okay. But then we've got a lot of people that are ready to actually really embody this, not just give their agreement, but actually help. Like the people that have been driving it, myself included, have for years, promoted it, not being financially rewarded for it. Which obviously we recognise happens all the time with charities. Charities obviously they receive donations for their. This is the biggest charity there is. It frees humanity. It gives everybody universal abundance, freedom, completely.
I want to make that very clear for people. Like, this is not, you don't have to pay anything to sign up. There's no subscription. It's not a club. Because there have been a lot of groups doing humanitarian projects that started off like that. Oh, we're going to receive funding. Oh, we're struggling. Can you give us a couple of quid every month? It's not about that at all. It's intention. And I think very important word you said was, rather than working, people will be contributing. Yeah. In whatever way that is, and in whatever way they can. Because if we all contributed, there would be more than enough time, more than enough people. Just because you don't need money doesn't mean that people are going to be sitting there doing nothing. We're humans, we're creative, we want to interact, we want to do stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you need people to do? Obviously, I'll put the details of the website.
Yeah. Well, so basically the first thing is for people to go onto the website. Maybe you're ready just based on just the concept alone. You get it. Like, it's heaven on earth. Like, I'll read you the plan, but you can see on the landing page as you come on and you scroll down, there's a summary of the 3 phases, which you can look at in more detail. There's obviously, again, a general sort of overview of, the general theme or reason for this being created. You've got the counter on that homepage. So you can see the total of agreements that have come in worldwide on that homepage. It does show you the last 10 consents where they come from. And at the moment, you're going to see a lot of consents that are coming in from the Philippines, because we actually have people in the Philippines and in Africa that are actually out there going to remote villages where people don't even have mobile phones or internet. Okay, they're actually explaining to them, like missionaries. I don't want people to confuse this. This has nothing to do with religion, but they are like understanding that there are billions of people below the line of poverty. There's probably 2 billion people still that don't even have a mobile phone and internet in different parts of the world. So we can get the agreements. That 4 billion is going to happen, I'm telling you, because 4 billion people already below the line of poverty or close to it. Okay, and we've got people just explaining it to them and then actually taking their details and then registering their details. So they're acting as guardians. Now, people can actually register their children, right? If your child is too young to understand, or you've got a dependent, whether they're an elderly person that's disabled and they can't do it, or they don't have internet, you can act as a guardian. So maybe your additional contribution to giving your agreement to this at this time is just registering your own children and others that are unable to do it for themselves, that you are basically their guardian ultimately. But realistically, we need as many people to actually step up and share this, because We can actually bring this in months, not years. People will think this number of 4 billion is what makes it outrageously stupid idea because it's never going to happen, which is, again, just another limited belief, right? We've got the internet, social media. There's 5 billion people that use social media. 5 billion, right? And like I say, 90% of people, 95% of people are not so attached to their ego that they would basically rather stay on this plane where there's lots of suffering than actually have a heaven on earth if they can just believe that it's possible. So we just need more people to actually be sharing it, because that is what's going to build belief for more of those skeptical people so that they'd actually open up to it. And the website, as well as the agreements come in, that's where this platform, it actually acts as an instrument that actually builds belief in people. Because at this moment, we've got 350,000, which is a decent number. You know, it shows that it's got some traction, right? But ultimately, when that number gets to 10 million people worldwide, people who learn that there's 10 million people that have given their agreement to this, let me take a closer look, right?
Snowball.
And to get to 4 billion can happen in like this, because I basically, let's say the numbers have grown by 1,000 in the last week just from me putting out videos worldwide, okay? If those 1,000 people who were using social media, that's how they discovered me, so they're already scrolling on there. If they just started putting out videos themselves, then they got 1,000 people from the views of their videos, which could happen, and they did that within a week. That would be 1 million people. If 1 million people then did it, so they got 1,000 views, then you're basically within weeks you could be at that 4 billion, potentially. Now, I know that's unrealistic, I think that everybody would do that, but it's just to say that basically the way that things go viral these days, the fact that people are more ready than ever now, but we do need to have more people participating, and particularly with social media, the way the algorithm works is if it sees people if we keep people on TikTok platform watching these videos, it's going to push that content out because that's what the algorithm wants. So yeah, that's what we want anyway. We want as many people to step up. You can promote it offline if you want. You can do it through the website, whatever resonates. It's up to you. This is our destiny ultimately. But again, most importantly is give your agreement if you're aligned with it. Don't hesitate.
So just to end, like, this is our chance to participate. There's no massive manifesto or list or rules, etc., because we're going to be participating in the creation of a better future. So, you know, because I was looking at it and I was thinking, what would people say about it? What would put them off? And that's one of the things. But if that's what you want, that's what we've already got. This is what you're going to do because the leaders have said so. This is a chance to participate in a better humanity, you know. So honestly, I would encourage everybody to go and have a look at the website. And I
Yeah,
really appreciate what you guys are doing and taking the time to do that.